Well, for some reaction to what we just heard from Donald Trump, we are now joined by Louise Blais. From 2017 to 2021, she served as Canada's ambassador and deputy permanent representative to the United Nations. Madame Blais, thank you for the time.
Thank you for having me.
So listen, a lot to dig into when you consider that very long speech we heard today from Donald Trump. And I do want to begin with what we just heard now about Palestine, the U.S. president really echoing what we heard from the Israeli prime minister yesterday, that to acknowledge a Palestinian state, Canada and many other countries around the world are essentially rewarding Hamas, a terrorist group responsible for the deaths of thousands, including the October 7 attack. What do you say to that?
Well, that's the main opposition argument, isn't it? And so this was no surprise. We have heard it before. I actually found that the president was soft in his rebuke of the General Assembly. We have to remember that the day before, there was really one leader after the other recognizing the State of Palestine and accusing Israel of many infringement on international law and humanitarian law. So I was expecting a stronger tone today from the president than we actually heard on this issue. He seemed to say that, obviously this was misguided, but at the same time, and he outlined the fact that the fighting does have to stop and lives have to be saved. But his way to that conclusion is different than what the majority of member states believe.
Different, as you say, but how difficult might it be for Canada to be really offside with the United States on a key foreign policy issue for them, the Middle East, when we right now are going back and forth on the issue of trade?
Right. Well, we're in good company, as we say in diplomatic language. We're not alone. Took that step in addition to the 140 some that had long ago. So that is helpful. But on the other hand, it's the matter in which we have done it. And then yesterday really doesn't change very much for that consequence, because what we did back in the summer is we made this announcement of our intention to recognize the State of Palestine just a day before the deadline that was in place in August. And as a surprise to the Americans, I think that probably we should have given them a heads up, told them that we were going to this direction, because historically, Canada was aligned with the Americans and Israel on issues at the UN. So this is a departure for Canada, a stronger departure than even for France. So in that sense, probably when your biggest, largest trading partner, your biggest ally in security, you're going to go in a different direction, then probably a conversation to just explain why in advance would have been the way to go.
Do you think
that was
Sorry to interrupt, Madame Blais, but do you think that will have a negative impact then, the fact that we did not give them more advance warning?
I think it already has. I think it speaks to the trust, the relationship. I was in D.C. just 2 weeks ago, and I heard it from many Republicans that there's this sense that we're two ships passing in the night, that we're not speaking the same language, and that we haven't succeeded in establishing the kind of relationship with the administration that could lead to a deal. And we heard, I know I'm criticized for saying this often, but we heard the president say it today, and that's just a fact. And we know he said he doesn't like to do business with people that he doesn't get along with. He said it in his speech. So for him, it's personal. You've got to build rapport. And from there, well, you do negotiate and try to get something out of it. That comes first with Donald Trump. And we get the sense that we're just not there yet.
Yeah, not there yet, as you say. And then there are the two other issues that came up during Donald Trump's speech. One having to do with the environment, criticizing, green efforts to address climate change. He also addressed migration efforts, refugee efforts. Are those potential sticking points with the U.S. if Canada continues on its path? Because, it is still very much, at least on the books, different from what the United States is advocating.
Well, you're actually quite right to ask the question. And I think of all the topics that were raised today, I think the one on energy is the one that I think really matters in Canada. Obviously, the United States is charting a different path. So far, we'll have to wait and see with this government what will be in the budget, what the other big projects will be. But clearly, Donald Trump today talked about the green scam and really derided renewable energies as expensive and inefficient, and not generating enough power to really power the energy of the economy of tomorrow. So we'll have to wait and see. Canada is a superpower. The Prime Minister says so, and we clearly are. But are we really fulfilling the true potential of that superpower ability if we have hampered ourselves as much as we have in the past 10 years? So we're seeing a change. We're seeing some alignment, but we'll have to wait and see. But that's definitely on critical minerals, and those sectors it's definitely fertile ground for coming to common ground with the United States.
Mm-hmm. So as you say, it's a wait and see as we continue to follow the negotiations back and forth. But before we leave the UN altogether, Madame Blais, I do also want to talk about the writ large, the criticisms that Donald Trump had for the organization, because clearly we've seen the United States under his administration move further away from the UN, have been far more critical of the UN. Today we heard Donald Trump essentially chastising them for not preventing wars around the world. What does this mean for multilateral efforts and institutions like the United Nations? Are they in trouble?
Well, in a way, what he said today was a relief to me vis-a-vis what he could have said. He could have pulled the United States out. He could have said other things. He's raising something that is shared around the world. Why is it that the UN has not been able to stop and prevent some of these regional conflicts that we're seeing? Well, part of the reasons, it's not the UN, it's the member states. It's the Security Council, which is paralyzed, and the US has been part of the problem, using its veto when it serves its own purpose. It's not the only country who've done that. Obviously, Russia has done that in the context of its invasion of Ukraine. So it's a bit unfair to criticize the UN as an organization when really the fault should be laid at the feet of the member states, particularly the P5.
Louise Blais, as I say, always appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.